Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a beautiful 31st of August, 2024. Labor Day weekend, long weekend ahead. Coming to the podcast, episode 305. That's right, Principles of Government Failures. Oh my God, such headlines this week in regards to certain immigrants causing trouble, colonialism, and all that other woke nonsense. Coming up the podcast, please stick around. Listener review discretion may be advised because I will swear, will smoke a few cigarettes, make some funny faces, and might get a little bit mad. Oh my. All that more come up the show. Please stick around.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me.
Yes, sir.
There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthless.
From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast, a Canadian veteran's point of view on political, social, economic issues and life. Here's Crusty.
And that's right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. You can find the podcast here on YouTube and on Podbean and on Rumble and other fine places where you can get your podcast. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. Pardon my diligence, ladies and gentlemen, not my due diligence, pardon my slack and idleness. I haven't had an episode up since the last one, which I promised I'd get up on Wednesday and Thursday. However, today's Saturday. My apologies. I just had a busy week back at work, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to catch up on things, get bills squared away, get everything paid up again, and back to reality as we see it. So like the little thumbnail said, fail immigration. But this is also principles of government failures, ladies and gentlemen. And if you like and hear what you see, please click like, subscribe, share this podcast, all of your social media platforms too. Do not be shy. And this podcast is also brought to you in part by and supported by the Veterans for Freedom Network. That's right, Stand to Veterans for Freedom. And coming soon, hopefully sometime soon, Veterans Freedom TV, like-minded individuals such as myself, other veterans, and other concerned Canadians will come together and have a podcast network. So this is a reminder too, click that notification bell, click like, subscribe, comment if you can too. This episode will not be as fast as furious. I'll have a little more details for you here too. I'll be playing some clips a bit later, some excerpts from Lauren Gunter, confrontation from a concerned citizen to Justin Trudeau at Algoma Steel. I think it's in Hamilton. And we're going to have a little speech from Toronto's deputy mayor. She's got a spiel about colonialism there. Oh, my goodness. We got to keep blinging colonialism for today's problems. So, as the thumbnail said, fail immigration. So, this is all atop my head, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, I am not against immigration. Okay? A lot of people that I have worked with and worked for over the past 30 years, they are not against, I'm not against immigration whatsoever. Because, look at the globe and the history of the world, history of North America, history of South America, parts of Europe and Africa. There's been immigration going back and forth. One way or the other, we are all immigrants of some sort. When you look at the DNA and genetics and where people moved here, people moved there, that's fine. But the past 150 years, Canada has been a country, okay, and officially became its own country. Okay, after the Constitution was signed by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II and Pierre Elliott Trudeau back in May of 1982. Prior to that, I guess you say Canada was still technically a colony, right? But Canada was holding its own weight for a very, very long time prior to that. So that's why I loathe the word colonialism, because it's a new buzzy, trendy word out there that's going to help us all understand how much guilt we should have to carry according to the left side of the spectrum. But this guy is not carrying any guilt for anything because I didn't do anything wrong to any minorities in this country. Okay, I wasn't raised in the kind of household where you have to constantly be shamed and guilted for chapters in the past. All right, and I'll get to that little video there I mentioned earlier shortly. But the point being, as the title says, principles of government failures. So there were two individuals that are going to plan a heinous crime in Toronto. And apparently one of those individuals was a member of ISIS, allegedly. And apparently there's a video out there that some officials have seen this individual hack up some poor bastard during the Syrian civil war. Okay, now this guy and his son were planning to commit some kind of heinous attack sometime in August or sometime late July. I don't know. But what's the cherry on top of this story is that our CBSA, our border services, our intelligence services, CSIS, and the RCMP did not pick up on this guy. It took somebody in the French intelligence, ton pays, la France, the intelligence sector, who had to get information to our guys here in Canada saying, hey, you got to watch out for this guy because he's a little loopy. Okay. Now, there's video out there with MP Brock from the Conservative parties grilling Dominic LeBlanc, Mr. Security guy himself. Okay. Now, I'm just ad-libbing here, ladies and gentlemen. I've watched so many of these news programs about these ass clowns calling the shots for Canadian safety and security. Right. But it's a big fail. It's a big fail. There's nothing wrong with coming to Canada, nothing wrong with coming to the United States, nothing wrong going to Britain or Germany or any of these functioning democracies to have a better life for yourself or your loved ones. But when you hear stories about someone who's been living in Canada since 2018, who was not vetted properly, who received his citizenship quickly and efficiently, and all of a sudden he was playing some kind of attack with his son against maybe a visible minority in Toronto or maybe people in general, you get a little skeptical and you get a little pissy and you get a little worried and you're going to start pointing the finger and starting the finger wagging. Who is responsible for this? What's going on here? What's happening here? Would it have something to do with all these synagogues that are being attacked lately? Would it have something to do with all of this anti-Semitism that's been going around lately? Who knows, right? It makes you think. What's in the works? Right. And the countless excuses we get from our federal government in regards to this, too, because you've heard me ramble on, ladies and gentlemen, regardless if you say this or if you say that, if you disagree with the status quo that the federal liberals are pushing down our throats on a daily basis, you're deemed as the big R or the big M or the big B or whatever buzzwords they want to throw at you just to tote their virtue even further, slapping and tickling for your wallet and for your souls as we speak. Okay. Enough of that fire and brimstone stuff, right? But I think you get to my point. So as a little thumbnail, yes, thank you, thumbnail, failed immigration. It's what it is, okay? Once again, I'm going to reiterate, ladies and gentlemen, I am not against immigration in this country. I'm not. I want people to live and thrive to their best of their ability by their own means. Nothing wrong with getting a little help here and there, having to live in a country and having the freedom to do it, okay? But I think we got to do better, Canada. Okay. So those individuals that caught this guy, great. Thank you very much. But why did it take French intelligence to give us the insight? Something to think about, eh?
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 305, Principles of Government Failures. That's right. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. And just a reminder, too, if you like and hear what you see, please click like, subscribe, share this podcast all over your social media platforms. Don't be shy. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a comment. Ring the notification bell if you have one on whatever site you're watching at. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Rumble. All that great stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Please check out, subscribe, and like, comment. Help the Canadians, such as myself and other Canucks out there, getting their words out there well before Bill C-63 rears its ugly head and censors us all because we're just not Canadian enough for the broadcasting channels. You know what I mean? Anyway, make a long story short, the immigration policies in this country really suck. They do. They do. There's nothing wrong with opening up the borders to helping people out to come for a better life. But when you have scams that are going on with these so-called fly-by-night colleges, when they're sponsored by a certain amount of Canadians that want to take money from Canadians or people that want to be Canadians and rip them off and make them sit and wait and give them half-assed degrees in something that's totally irrelevant, it makes you think the jig is up, right? So there's a little more that's in the soup than we know, ladies and gentlemen, and it's up to us to find out and to make it right for everybody. So the next bunch of people that want to come to Canada and have a decent life, and they can, without all the hoops and the drama and the BS and the virtue that's being brought to us by our federal liberals. Okay. Now, there's been speculation and there's been hesitation, which I can understand, but in the same sense, too, when it comes to apprehending people, such as those two gentlemen I talked about the ones that actually were going to carry out some kind of terrorist act. It makes you think, how are these immigration overseers really doing their job, right? Anyway, here's a little editorial from a Lauren Gunter. Okay. And he's got quite the thing to say about this when it comes to national security and the immigration policies, too. I'll just cue this up here, ladies and gentlemen. But it makes you think. And I suggest, as always, think for yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to take my opinion. Take your own. Take your own and just do your thing. But just think clearly and be fair and weigh the odds. Anyway, here's Lauren Gunter.
Probably already familiar with the name Ahmed El-Didi. And if you're not familiar with his name, you're familiar with what he's alleged to have done. In July, El-Didi and his grown son, Mustafa, were arrested in a northern Toronto suburb for having plotted a terror attack that they were unable to carry out against targets in the Toronto area. The question, since the El-Didis have been arrested, though, is how did they get into Canada? Ahmed El-Didi, the senior of the two, is suspected of having participated in a snuff film produced by the terrorist group ISIS. In this film, El-Didi is alleged to be seen hacking off the hands and feet of a man who's suspected of being an ISIS traitor, someone who had turned on ISIS, someone who had divulged some of their secrets. And here is El-Didi allegedly hacking off the man's hands and feet and letting him die. Oh, it's a lovely person to let into the country. And we did let him in. We let him in as a tourist in 2018. Later that year, he applied for refugee status. In 2019, he was granted refugee status. In 2021, he was given permanent resident status. And in May of 2024, just 3 months ago, he was made a citizen of Canada. In that process, he was screened at least twice and probably 3 times. And in not one of those instances did anyone with the federal bureaucracy say, hey, wait a minute, this guy's dangerous. Maybe we shouldn't let him in. The attitude among federal civil servants and federal politicians of the liberal persuasion is such that no one should be excluded from Canada except in the most extreme cases. Now, I would say this is the most extreme case, but in their mentality, it's just rubber stamp, rubber stamp, rubber stamp. Let anybody in who wants to come in. Don't worry about the red flags that there might be in their record. Now, the curious thing about this is that on August the 28th, on the day that the parliamentary committee is about to start investigating how El-Didi and his son got into this country, Dominic LeBlanc, who is the federal public safety minister, said of the process that ended in the El-Didi's arrest, this is exactly how the investigative and national security system is supposed to work.
And are now charged with 9 serious offenses, including terrorism-related offenses, and are currently incarcerated, remanded into custody. This is the way that the investigative and national security system should work.
By what quirk of logic is that even possible? I think that is simply indicative of how incompetent the federal Liberal government is, because they refuse to see the inherent dangers in Chinese interference in Canada, in Iranian interference in Canada, in ISIS activities in Canada. They do not believe there's anyone from outside the country who means us harm. They simply can't be persuaded that this country has enemies who mean to do it ill. And so LeBlanc says something ridiculous like, oh, this is exactly the way the investigative and national security system is supposed to work. But here's one last thing to keep in mind about this case. The only reason that the El-Didis were arrested in July before they could carry out their terrorist attack was the French security services tipped us off. Our screening system was so inadequate that these two had made it through all the Canadian screening, and only a tip from the French prevented what was a major terror attack being plotted, allegedly by the LDDs. If that is how Dominic LeBlanc thinks that our national security system should work, he and the rest of the federal government should be turfed from office. For Post Media, I'm Lauren Gunter.
So that's self-explanatory, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe we should thank France. Merci, France. Merci beaucoup. Right? We should thank them for doing our job. We should thank them, right, for doing what CSIS and all these other bureaucrats and admins should have been doing. But, you know, like they always say, crack don't smoke itself.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And just a reminder, too, ladies and gentlemen, if you like and hear to see, please click like, subscribe, share this podcast, all of your social media platforms. You can find me on YouTube, Rumble, Podbean, and other fine places where you find podcasts. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck, and I'm getting a little winded there, a little passionate about this country and its plight. We're just analyzing, and we're seeing the principles of government failures. Right? We're seeing the principles of these government failures. It doesn't matter where you're from. And I'm going to say again, ladies and gentlemen, I've said this numerous times, I'm going to keep saying it too. I am not a bigot. I am not a racist. I welcome immigration because in my youth, I worked for immigrants. I worked for Italians. I worked for Chinese. I worked for Danish. I worked for a couple of Greek lads moving drywall. I worked for a Swedish guy who's actually shown me some landscaping ideas there too, back when I was about 21. So you can't tell me that I've never experienced diversity, nor have I experienced adversity, okay? In the military, I've worked with many people, all walks of life, all colors, all creeds, all faiths, believe it or not, Asian, French Canadian, Parisian French, you know, a couple of guys from Uruguay, a few lads from Jamaica, you know, lots of Asian Canadians, lots of East Indian Canadians. All walks, all shapes and sizes. Yes, even a few gays, a few lesbians. Oh my, we're getting really diverse now, eh? So when people complain about the immigration in this country, they're not giving the immigrants a hard time. They're giving the federal government and the gatekeepers a hard time because they're leaving the gates open with no chance of locking them up again in case of emergency. I just gave you an example of that emergency. It's time we take a stand against it. Not the immigrants, but the administration that promotes it. You know what I mean? Because like I said, we're all immigrants, one or the other. Canada was founded by the Vikings, technically speaking, right? And then the French came along, and the English came along, and they didn't like each other, so they had a war, right? Then the English had the United States, and then the English got their asses kicked by the American colonials, right? Mexico, same thing. They were overseen by Spain. And Spain and Portugal oversaw South America and Central America. So yes, we're all colonials one way or the other. We're all immigrants of that part of history. We've all grown up understanding history. But when you keep talking about immigration policies and saying things like, oh, no one's illegal or no one's this, well, yeah, you kind of are. Because if I was sitting here right now and someone comes into my house and plops their ass on my Chesterfield, puts their feet on my table, starts watching my TV without me inviting them or getting to know that person, that's an illegal entry. Is it not? According to the law, it would be. So how's it any different across the border? Right? I don't want to deny anyone the opportunity to have a better life. Okay? But if someone wants to come to Canada and they have no intention of having a better life, and they have the intentions of taking a life or two or three or four or more, we got to look at our vetting process. We got to look at our security and our screening process a hell of a lot better than we are. That's all I'm going to say about that. Now, here's a speech from Toronto's deputy mayor, Asuma Malik, if I'm pronouncing it right. Okay. And this came from the 28th of August. Okay. Now, I'm not going to play the whole speech. I'll leave this in my description for you all, ladies and gentlemen. However, she starts rambling on about colonialism and all that good stuff. And I just want you to listen to it because I am getting so sick and tired of this finger wagging colonialism and this so-called fake oppression this whole victimhood that's being rammed down our throats, not just in Canada, but in the United States and in Britain too. Okay. So pay attention to what she says the last couple of minutes. Like I said, I'll leave this in the description. You can listen to the whole speech. It's actually kind of an empowering speech, but what did it for me would be the last 2 minutes of it. And I want you to decide, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to sit and formulate for yourselves, okay, what you think of this individual claiming this garbage. Okay, just pay attention.
13, Toronto was the first Canadian municipality to affirm a sanctuary city policy. And although the City of Toronto's access to city services for undocumented Torontonians policy strives to ensure access
it looks like a
to
busy
all
crowd.
city services regardless of immigration status, the reality is that undocumented residents continue to face barriers in their communities. The fact is that municipalities cannot do this work alone as they lack the jurisdictional authority to provide concrete pathways to permanent residence. As we continue to see anti-immigrant rhetoric on the rise in Canada and around the world, we amplify calls from community leaders and advocates for an immediate, broad, and inclusive regularization program that provides pathways to permanent resident status for all undocumented residents. Together, we will continue to dismantle systems of colonialism and anti-Black racism, and we reflect on the enhanced vulnerability that racialized communities with precarious immigration status experience. Undocumented Residents Day is an opportunity to acknowledge with gratitude the important work taking place to ensure all Torontonians, regardless of their immigration status, can feel safe and are treated with dignity and respect in Toronto. It is also an opportunity to learn more about community organizations who provide the necessary supports for undocumented residents. Now, therefore, Olivia Chow, on behalf of Toronto City Council, do hereby proclaim August 2024 as Undocumented Residents Day in the City of Toronto. My name is Asma Malik. My pronouns are she, her, and
like you're making it sound like you're doing the world a favor. The system of colonialism. Oh my goodness, we have to stop this. Lady, how did you get your job? Think about that. Okay. What kind of taxes are you charging the people in the city of Toronto? I know out west here, there's a mayor in the city of Calgary that's right the hell out to lunch. She's promoting water restrictions again because they can't get the infrastructure sorted out. And I know some Calgarians that are paying a little too much in taxes and they're not too fucking happy about it. So I think it's safe to assume, even though, you shouldn't use the word you assume, make an ass out of me and you, all that good shit. Okay. But when you're paying enough city taxes to foot the bill for undocumented people, you becoming fair and being inclusive and being all this stuff. Okay. What's it going to cost in the end? I just presented to you a video about a couple individuals that were part of the whole fair inclusive entourage. And look what they're planning to do. They were documented too. They became a citizen. They became citizens, for crying out loud. There's nothing wrong with being passionate and being good to people, but we've got rules for a reason, lady. And you're the assistant mayor. So you're making 6 figures a year. So don't give me this colonial stuff or this anti-this racism or anti-that racism. Don't give me your blatant bigotry when it comes to helping people and when it comes to looking after people that do pay in this country. Okay? It's got nothing to do with color. It's got nothing to do with creed. It's about blatant ignorance. And your wokeism has got to stop. I mean, really, enough of this shit already.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, episode 305, the Crusty Canuck podcast, Principles of Government Failures. Now, I just presented to you a couple of stories, one from Lauren Gunter, who talked about the whole security thing, and the deputy mayor of Toronto, going on about colonialism and fairness and equality. Okay, well, you want real fairness in this country, then you make sure that these half-assed schools that are attracting these foreign students, get a good slap in the wrist and probably a closure. Crack down the administrative BS, crack down on the bureaucrats that Justin Trudeau has hired since his inception in 2015. These government jobs. How about cut back on some of the taxes you're charging Torontonians? How about all the mayors Canada-wide stop being a bunch of dicks and stop being a bunch of wimps and get off your ass and stand up for the people that pay your fucking salary? It's that shit simple. But oh, no, we can't do that because we have to tote a virtue. Yes. We have to talk about paradise and fairness. Oh, yes. At other people's expenses. Okay. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, I was not raised in a bigoted household. I gave you my bio on regards of who I've worked with, who I've worked for, and some of the adventures I've had. And I was not raised to be a bigot. But I don't tolerate stupidity, and neither should you, ladies and gentlemen. You should tolerate fairness and equality all across the board. Equal opportunity, equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. They tried that back in the 20th century, and look what happened. You had the Warsaw Pact, you had the Iron Curtain, you had unnecessary wars. You want that kind of bullshit here in North America? Do you? Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. Because the more and more these virtue seekers keep poking and prying and sticking holes here and sticking holes there and saying this is colonialism, well, you're going to find some colonialists or Canadians or Americans or expats who love living in this country, who love living in the United States, who love living in Britain, who love living in a democracy, and especially people who love just to be left the fuck alone. Shit's going to hit the fan, and it's not going to be pretty. Anyhow, here's a little video that CTV News took today. I guess the Prime Minister was at Algoma Steel bragging about how, 25% tariffs are going to come on Chinese steel. And here's an individual who just didn't really care what he had to say. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, you decide for yourselves on the reaction here. I know there's still a lot of people out there that just love what Justin's doing and just love his hair and just love how he likes to talk about people and how he talks down to people too. But this guy is not going to have anything with it or anything to do with it. So like I said, ladies and gentlemen, you guys decide and think for yourselves.
Hey, I'm fine. Just one Well, we got donuts over here if you want to thank you for your hard work.
I can bring some for my kids here.
Okay.
Oh, donuts.
The 25% tariffs we just brought in on Chinese steel is going to help you out.
That's going to keep my job.
Yeah.
What about the 40% taxes I'm paying, and I don't have a doctor?
The $400 million in the invest in the electric car means you're going to have a job.
I think you're only here for another year. We won't see you around probably another year.
Well, that's what elections are for.
That's right.
And I look forward to everyone exercising the right to vote.
Yep.
Basic choice. We're going to invest in you and your job.
I don't believe you for a second.
Dental care?
Bullshit.
You know anyone who got dental care?
Yeah, I pay for it myself.
Okay.
We're like 3 years behind.
You have a job and coverage?
Yeah,
but we got
people
seniors.
in my family.
We got
Every time we go for a dental visit, it's costing me about $50 in my pocket per person.
Okay.
Why? I have a good job. You're not really doing anything for us, Justin.
Well, actually, we just invested so 500,000 people haven't been to the dentist. Got to go to the dentist over the past few months.
Probably like my neighbor that doesn't go to work because she's lazy.
Well,
She just doesn't go to work. She lives the same
Most
life I do.
Canadians try to stick up for each other, and that's what we're going to keep doing.
Yeah.
Good luck and take care of your family, sir.
No,
All right.
have a nice day.
Have a good day, sir. Good night. All right, the other guys got the donuts. Excellent.
God, what a schmuck. What a bloody schmuck he... Oh, my God. What a schmuck. Honestly. Okay? Oh, we got dental care for you. Oh, we're going to have this for you. How about you stay the fuck out of our pockets? Is what the guy was trying to tell you. The captions are on, ladies and gentlemen. You saw it in plain English. He's like, I don't believe you. You're going to be gone in a year. Okay. The man was trying to hold back probably from clocking him one. Right? It's that simple. Like, so I think, ladies and gentlemen, I've just proved my point. The title is self-explanatory. Principles of government failures. People are going broke. People are having a hard time with the cost of living because of government spending, because of government borrowing, not just because it's a global phenomenon, because we have incompetent officials sitting in Ottawa right now counting their pennies that they took from you and me, 40% of it, and giving it away. Oh, well, they're going to stand up against China. You want to get tough, get the oil flowing. You want to get tough, build nuclear. You want to get tough, upgrade our military. You want to get tough, cut out some of these government offices. Cut back on some of the bureaucrats and admins you hired. That would be a healthy start. But that's just me, though. What the fuck do I know? Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, I have been Crusty Canuck on this beautiful 31st of August, 2024. This is Labor Day weekend, the last good weekend of the summer, ladies and gentlemen. Next long weekend will be coming. Will probably be the Canadian Thanksgiving sometime in October. However, get out there, enjoy yourselves, enjoy your family and friends. We still got good weather, so get out there, get some sun, have some fun in the water ski, camp, whatever you got to do. And just sit and be grateful to what you have with you. You got your health, you got your heart, you got your pride, you got your family, you got your loved ones. And even if you don't have many people in your life, just stand up and be strong and be real. And do your best to be good to people, regardless of what my rant said, regardless of what this rant says, regardless of the buffoonery that's sitting in Ottawa and Washington, D.C. at the moment. We can do better, and we got to do better, period. Right? We got to stand up for what's right. But do what you can to help you out in these trying times. Look after your friends and loved ones, and just be thankful of what we got so far. And don't be afraid to fight for it, because I won't be. Like I said, I've been Crusty Canuck on this beautiful 31st of August, 2024. Do what you can to help you out in trying times. I've said that. And just be good to each other to the best of your abilities. And like I always say, ladies and gentlemen, humanity and merit wins the day. Take care, and I'll probably see you in a couple of days. Bye for now.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me. Yes, sir. There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthless.
This has been another episode of the Crusty Canuck podcast. Stay sane and thank you for listening. From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast.
Oh, govern me harder. Harder. Harder.